Hi, thank you everyone for coming. I am your principal at Woodstock Elementary. And we have here today the counselor, Jesus' counselor, we have his teacher, and we have mom here. How's everybody doing today? How's everybody's week going?
Good. Great.
Good, great. So
Good.
we're just gonna go over his accommodation plan. And it's actually called a 504 student accommodation plan, and we're just gonna get it together and see how we can help Jesus out. And this is gonna be his initial plan meeting, and this accommodation plan will be distributed to the parent, you mom, his teachers, and also the counselor and myself. So let's get into some of the things that is bothering Jesus that he needs a little bit of accommodation with, and counselor is going to go over that.
All right. Actually, I think it'd be great if we did a little roundtable introduction. So,
Oh,
hi, Mom.
yes, I'm sorry.
Hi, Mom. My name's Matt Espinoza. I am obviously Jesus's counselor here at Woodstock Elementary.
Nice to meet you. I am Jesus's mother.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Miss Brown. I am one of Jesus's core teachers.
And I am the principal again of the school. Can you
Okay.
tell us a little bit about Jesus, mom, before we get started?
Yeah, of course.
What's your thing at home? What's going on?
So when I look at his schoolwork, I do notice that some things are sloppy. And I have been misspelled, and I've asked him about that, and he says he feels rushed sometimes at school because I look at other homework assignments and they're perfectly well written and everything's fine. So that was a little confusing to me, but yeah, he just says he feels rushed. I know that he's been having issues with staying focused. He can't really focus on one thing for too long, even at home. He gets easily distracted. And yeah, I know that he's been having some problems within the classroom.
Okay. Yeah, so that sounds like it's actually pretty on par with what we saw in our assessments and what we kind of went over last time, right? So looking at kind of all of Jesus's needs that were identified by the last evaluation, we have them listed. I have I'll go through them one by one just so that we kind of get through it. So for each need that we saw in his evaluation, we're going to come up with a modification here at the school that we can do to help him get through with those trouble activities. So number one, we definitely noticed that, like you said, in the home, he sometimes feels like he is rushed. That's why his homework is a little sloppy. So we see that. Actually, when I spoke to him last, he said that he feels as though he does not always have sufficient time to complete his work. And that's why some of his work is super neat and clean, because he feels like he has the time to do that. And other times he feels like, you know what, maybe I'm falling behind. I'm just not going to be able to keep up with the class if I try to write neat. So he writes it down sloppy and it becomes illegible. And obviously that isn't helping him because he can't read it back and study from it or learn it, and it isn't helping him with his grade with the teacher and his grade either, because the teacher can't grade it if she can't read it. So looking at that, I personally believe that the modification that we should do to help him with not feeling as though he has enough time for his homework would be to allow Jesus additional time to turn in his homework without a penalty. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys have some sort of family event, maybe a birthday, maybe he has baseball practice or something of that sort in the evening. And after that, he starts doing his homework and he's pooped. It's a weeknight. He's tired. He feels like he can't get it done. If you notice that he starts to write rapidly and to get it done, I believe it would be okay just to allow him maybe an extra day or two to get that in.
Is that something that you'd agree with?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, is that something that you
Oh,
think?
me?
you can
Yeah,
do?
I really think that would be helpful.
What about you, teacher? Is that something that would be okay? You would be okay?
Yeah, that's something that I can allow him to do.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So let me just get that marked down right here. I think that will be a game changer for him. Looking at the second need that we identified in his evaluation at last, we saw that his work is not up to standard when inspected sometimes. And you mentioned that you noticed that at home, kind of when you looked over his homework. So I think a modification for that could be possibly some sort of tutoring session. I believe we have one at the school. Um,
Yes, we do.
we do? Okay. Do you know what days that
But
would be?
we have, I believe it's on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the library. Is that correct, teacher?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend, I think we would all recommend that Jesus,
And this would be after school, Mom. Would that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. It's 2 days of the week.
Yes,
Okay.
Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay,
yeah, so okay, so we can mark down that Jesus will attend after school tutoring, after school meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the library.
correct.
And looking at the third need, Jesus's third need through the last evaluation was that Jesus needs constant attention in the classroom and out. So a modification for that could be essentially setting like firmer limits or more of a class, like not necessarily a class structure, but structure for Jesus. So firmer limits and more structure can be introduced to Jesus in the classroom setting. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire class will be set on one thing. It'll just mainly be aimed at Jesus, and maybe a couple things could trickle into the other class so he doesn't feel as though he's being singled out. Do you think that's something that we might be able to implement in your class?
Yeah, could you give me like just one example of what
Yeah,
that would look like?
yeah. So setting like a firmer limit, or I guess we could go with setting setting a firmer structure, setting more structure in class for Jesus could look something like maybe he isn't allowed to get up and roam around just
Okay.
for no reason. Maybe he can't get up and sharpen his pencil 5 times in 20 minutes.
Okay.
I mean,
So
that's
just
kind of
one
also,
specific rules.
yeah, it's also up to your like discretion. I mean, maybe
Okay.
he did use his pencil and it snapped because he had too much pressure on it. So I mean, that's just kind of something that you'll kind of have to use at your own discretion. But if you notice
Okay.
he's getting up maybe to throw away a piece of paper that's smaller than his fingernail, it doesn't necessarily need to be thrown away right then and there. He's
Right.
just trying to escape that work.
Right.
That might be something that we can kind of stay on
Okay.
top of.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good.
Do you notice that at home too, Mom? Maybe like he just gets bored with whatever's at
Yes.
hand. Okay.
Yes, he gets bored very easily. Even if he's just playing a game, he hops from different games. He gets bored playing video games. He wants to go outside. He wants to play, he's just all over the place. I have noticed that.
Okay. So we'll definitely get that set up for him then. And the last need that we kind of saw by Jesus is pretty similar to the first one, but it's a little bit different. So we're going to be talking about how Jesus sometimes submits work that is sloppy and illegible sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think the modification for that could be, we obviously know he's doing that because he feels as though he's rushed, but we can give him extra work, extra time, not extra work. We can give him extra time in the classroom. So Jesus will have additional time to clearly and neatly do his work in class. So this could be maybe he's on a test and he feels like he's going to spell something wrong if he doesn't take his time and he starts to rush and then we can't read it. So maybe extra time for classwork, quizzes, tests, anything in the classroom. So does that sound like something we can do? I mean, I don't know if maybe there's somewhere else he can do his work, if the class moves on to something else.
Yeah, I
Uh,
have the same question. I'm just trying to like picture what that would look like in my classroom with like, a bunch of different students.
Okay. As assistant principal, do you know if there's necessarily somewhere else Jesus could go to finish an assignment during class?
Yeah, you can actually utilize the teacher across the hall. She's already agreed to it. We
Oh,
had a talk with her before this meeting, and she's agreed to allow Jesus to come to the classroom where she actually has an aide
oh, okay.
Okay.
who is willing to assist with him having some time for
Okay.
whatever he needs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that'd be great. Does that sound okay with you, Mom?
Yeah, of course. That sounds great.
All right. Okay. And so now we're going to get a little bit more into the specific accommodations by class. So I would recommend that all these accommodations happen across the board in every class. Um, so we're not just kind of singling out English versus math. I think it should happen in all of them. But I would personally say, like we kind of mentioned earlier, like the modified testing. Um, Not necessarily modifying the questions, but maybe modifying where he takes the test and how
And the
long he
time.
has.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that leads us into the next one that I wanted to look at, which is extended time. So extended time for classworks and all of that, classwork, homework, and um, quizzes and tests. Do you guys kind of agree with those? I'm sorry, I'm kind of just going out and leading everyone
Yeah,
out on
that
this.
sounds pretty good. Like the next one, the shortening assignments, that's basically the same, so that looks good. We talked about some shortening of assignments as well, maybe less homework,
mhm.
um, you know, and it looks like we also talked about some tutoring, which we discussed with you already on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we want to do some peer tutoring. And I know the teacher you were talking about changing his seat, like so that he's a little bit
Yeah.
closer to you.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that would be beneficial to just have him closer to where, I am.
so we'll
I can help
change the
him.
seat. We'll make sure he has preferential seating in the classrooms. And they'll be reteaching difficult concepts. All the teachers, if he doesn't understand something, they will be reteaching it to him and making sure he understands. And in whatever he doesn't understand, again, with the tutoring. And then they'll be doing some team teaching as well. And that's basically where all the teachers will collaborate um, on assignments, and that will just give a better understanding so that he's not all confused with things, and everybody's on the same board, and they know what they should be assigning him and how the curriculum that he's going to be learning should be, making it basically easier for him. So we did discuss that. And these accommodations will take place as of today. So they will begin, the next day, that he has class. Um, and yeah, so let's get into the behavior plan, counselor.
Yes. So this is technically, just for you to know the technical term, it is a Section 504 behavior intervention plan. And what that means is essentially we're just going to talk about the different behaviors that Jesus kind of displays, what we're going to do to reinforce good behavior, what we're going to do as consequences for not necessarily preferred behavior, and we're going to discuss who the person responsible for administering the reinforcement and consequences will be. So moving straight into it, the behavior that we are trying to target for this intervention is we believe that Jesus is displaying significant symptoms of attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So he's all over in the classroom. I know one of his teachers was saying by the end of the day, she just feels worn out because she's having to constantly redirect and give all of her attention to Jesus. but she also has all of her other students that she's trying to instruct, and that kind of is a lot of work. So we're going to look at some of the appropriate behavior modifications that we can make for Jesus. Like we mentioned earlier, I see on here that it says to set clearly defined limits. So I think that would be a great modification for Jesus, like we already kind of mentioned before. But like the next one says, to give frequent reminders of the rules. I think this is something that would benefit Jesus as well, because I mean, he is, like you're saying, he gets bored and off task a little easily. With some maybe redirection, the teacher can kind of just be like, hey, Jesus, let's pull out our notebook. And that might kind of kickstart him getting into his work. I see that there is peer intervention. So that essentially would be assigning Jesus maybe like a buddy or someone he's sitting next to kind of do group work with him when the class does group work. Is that something that you guys do in your class? Do you guys do group work at all?
We do sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have noticed there are a couple of students in the class that he is kind of drawn to and close with. So I think maybe I could set something up where, he could work with them, and maybe
Okay.
that will help kickstart everything.
Yeah, sounds great. Let's see. And we are looking at we'll set up a behavior contract for him. So that's kind of just telling him what's okay and what's not, as in regard to appropriate behavior in the classroom. We're going to set up kind of like a little bit of supervision during unstructured time. So we're just going to kind of ask the teacher if she's able to, maybe during free time in the class, maybe if everyone's reading or something, maybe just kind of try to keep an eye on Jesus during that time, make sure he's not off task. Well, not necessarily off task, but not displaying inappropriate behavior or unacceptable behavior for the environment, because it is unstructured time. So that would mean that there's multiple things that he is able to do. And we're going to want to kind of set up a consistent routine for Jesus. So I think that a daily schedule of events would be great. And that could just be kind of him carrying around in his binder, because he's going class to class, kind of the list of things that he knows he will need to do. So, okay, right when I get to school, I'm going to have this class, or I'm going to do English. And then after that, I know I'm going to have recess. So maybe just being able to visualize it on paper might help him.
Yeah, and I think that should be with pictures, not words.
Pictures, okay, we can set that up.
I think that kids, they normally, it's kind of like it needs to be quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Versus
that
trying to
instant
read them.
recognition.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I can set that up for him. I'll get that. And I do think it is important to remove Jesus from a group or maybe a activity that he's doing if he is not displaying appropriate behavior. So maybe if he is in group work and he is just on something else, maybe he's drawing instead of helping with his group work. I think it'd be appropriate to pull him out of the group until he agrees, okay, I will stop drawing and I'll help my group move forward. And with this, I think it's also extremely important to use reinforcement. So we should be reinforcing his behavior that is appropriate in the environment. So just a little bit of praise goes a long way.
Praise
And
and redirection, right?
exactly. Exactly.
Okay, I have a question. What would redirection look like?
Yeah, so redirection can be anything from, I mean, maybe Jesus just is off task or just kind of staring into space. The teacher kind of discreetly, not in front of the entire class, but kind of maybe walks by the aisle and like taps the desk or puts her hand on the desk and says maybe, Jesus, do you need help with this? Do you need help getting started? Or let's do this. Or maybe let's do this first. Just something to kind of redirect him, because right now he's kind of focused over there. We're trying to redirect his focus onto his work at hand. Okay. And then I think it would be a great tool to communicate with you weekly. So I think I will be setting up forms for the teachers so that they can kind of mark off how he was for the week, and Jesus can take it home to you.
That'd be great. So that'd be great. Mom, do you have any questions? Do you understand everything? And do you have any questions about anything?
No, so far it sounds good. I really like the whole idea of redirecting him, because that is kind of something I even do at home, is kind of try and refocus him on whatever we're doing. So I really think that that's going to be something that's useful for him within the classroom. And you said that I'm gonna get like weekly.
Yeah, so we're gonna
Maybe like a weekly paper, like a weekly
Okay.
little log or something of things that he was doing, or, how he did, and
Yeah, that's
if there were any problems during the week or any issues, or even if he did a good job.
okay.
Yeah.
mhm.
So I think that's it. If you don't have any more questions, then that'll be the end of the meeting. And if you do come up with any questions, you have all of our emails. All been provided. You have our phone numbers, contacts, and just give us a call.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you,
receive a copy of that. We'll have it ready for you. All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you for your time.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.